welcome to Mirage. Today we're going to be speculating on Piers Anthony. Joining me again is Chris Herron of Tall Tale TV fame. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. A little bit of hay fever today, but other than that.
Man, do you get these white fluffy things that fall from the trees?
Oh gosh, the cottonwoods, they're horrible out here.
It's like getting assaulted every time you walk outside. Just horrible.
It's a great place to live as a voice actor.
Yeah, I bet, right? How's it going?
Good. So
have you done anything interesting? Actually, you know what I wanted to ask you? How do you actually do the recording of one of your shows? Do you have the story in front of you and just read it all the way through, or do you have notes on every single sentence?
Oh no, I just excuse me. I do a couple dry reads and everything like that. You know, I'll kind of practice and whatnot, make sure I have a good grasp of the material, and then I'll just turn on my mic and read into the mic. And anytime that I make a mistake, I've got a little clicker. You know, I don't know if you can hear that or not, but it'll put a little spike on the waveform, and then I can see as I'm going through in post-production that I have a mistake there, and so I know to zoom in and edit stuff out.
So the click is significantly higher than the vocal pattern? No kidding.
It actually hits the edges of the little tab, whatever you want to call it.
Oh, that's interesting. So you get right into the microphone. I should do something like that. Because I get lost sometimes. I don't even listen because it gets like, what do you spend like an hour after your time trying to find that one little tiny thing.
Exactly.
Like, just let it be natural.
But
wow, so a clicker. So can you snap your fingers? Does it take that?
You can do that, or some people like click their tongue, like that. But yeah, it's just one of those tricks of the trade that you pick up, so it just makes a little spike on the waveform that you see. It's like, oh, there's a mistake there.
Interesting. Really so I'm going to be able to see like 3 or 4 spikes from your explanation. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So you just read the story, and you have an issue, you click it and go back and read it again.
Yeah, like sometimes I'll go to do a voice or something like that, and it's just way off, so I'll do a click and I'll redo the voice. Or, quite often I'll read a line wrong or in the wrong tone or something, and I'll just redo it.
And how long does it take? How long does it take?
For a 20-minute episode, usually takes me about half an hour to record, and then it takes a couple hours to splice it all together.
Half an hour is not too bad to record.
Yeah.
I was thinking like days. Like you agonized over it at work. They're wondering why the ceramics aren't being made properly, and you're like, I've got to prepare.
Well, it's all in the preparation. If you know the material before you go and hit record, then you're a lot better off.
Have you had an opportunity to listen to any Piers Anthony's audiobooks?
Yeah. A while back I listened to one of them. I can't even remember the guy's name. He did an okay job, but they were all kind of in that old school style where it was a little bit more radio announcer of yesteryear kind of sounded.
Oh, what? I was just watching one on YouTube. I've never read, unfortunately, you read all these interesting authors. I started picking up, I picked up Kevin Hearn. Is that who the Iron Druid or was it the Iron Druid? Yeah, I started reading that book. It's interesting. But you always read these really great authors, and Piers Anthony's another one of those I didn't really get an opportunity to explore as a kid, and I really feel like it's too late. When did you discover him?
So, excuse me, I'm gonna keep coughing.
Yeah, no problem, man.
So I discovered him really early on. I know I was in elementary school, but I don't know what grade. I think it was 3rd or 4th grade. My aunt came down for a visit and just handed me this book. It was like the 5th book in the series, Man from Mundania from the Xanth
Why would
series.
she do that? Why would she hand you the 5th book in the series?
She had picked that one up at a 7-Eleven or something. I don't know, but she just had that one.
Is it a generational thing not to look at it and go, I wonder if he's read the first 4?
It's like my wife, she started on the 3rd book of the Harry Potter series because her mom picked it up in a bargain bin at the grocery store.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
that's kind of when the series got a little bit more serious. The 3rd book was the last kid's book, I think.
Yeah, and it's still her favorite.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. But yes, so I read that one, and it was the first full-length novel I'd ever read. Before then, it was like
400 pages.
Yeah, and before that, I had just been reading like Boxcar Children and Hardy Boys and Choose Your Own Adventures and stuff like that. So
Oh,
it's like,
interesting.
wow, they make stuff longer than these little tiny things I've been reading, and I just got kind of addicted to them until about my first or second year of high school, and then I found other authors. But for a long time, it was just basically him and Robert Aspirin. Those are my two big, introductions into fantasy.
I've never heard of the other guy either. Wow, very interesting.
Oh, Robert Aspirin's awesome.
See, the problem is, I unfortunately didn't have a lot of literature discussions with people in high school. I just read whatever fancied, the title or the cover or whatever have you. But the people
Mhm.
that I hung out with didn't read. Nobody read at all.
I know.
Nobody was going to talk. Nobody's going to be talking about books, right? I mean, you found this great author accidentally by your aunt handing you a copy of it,
Yep.
and maybe that could happen for me too. But I mean, that's like, how many books did he write?
Oh
26
God.
at least, because he went A to Z. I know he's very proud of that as a feat, right?
Yes. That was awesome.
But more than that,
You
though, it's not just 26. It's more than that.
it's well over. It was over 100 when I stopped
Wow,
collecting, and that
wow.
was back in the 90s.
Stopped collecting. So you have 100 Piers Anthony books on your shelf.
Oh well, in storage, but yeah.
Your wife said no. Is she a big Piers Anthony fan?
No, she's never read any of them.
Oh, really? Okay, good.
But
Thankfully,
but
I'm not
here's the
alone.
thing: is when I was a kid, I love Pierce Anthony, and my
Yeah.
parents loved the fact that I was reading. So I had a paper route, and I also had an allowance and stuff. So I always had money to buy books, and so they would take me to these used bookstores, and I would just find anything of Pierce Anthony's that I didn't own already. And at one point, I had like multiple copies of some of his books because they had different covers and whatnot. But that was kind of my candy store when I was a kid, and I'd always go straight for Pierce Anthony. But
What appealed to you?
Um, so before him, I hadn't really found anything that was clever, that kind of took concept to the next level. It was usually just, this kid found an egg in a thrift shop and it, was a dragon egg and the dragon was hatched and now he has a pet dragon. It was little kid kind of, books like that. And then I got his, and while he's not quite what I would consider an adult novelist. He's more a young adult to even slightly pubescent, kind of novelist. It was a lot more clever than what I was used to. So, and some of his concepts are still what I would consider clever, but his writing is definitely a shade below what I would tend to read now.
And you said third grade was when you discovered him.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
It's crazy young though, isn't it? Or am I?
Yeah.
I think it's really young to be discovering Piers Anthony's lewdness. Doesn't he have a bunch of like underwear stuff going on in his fiction?
Yep.
I watched a video that was like 22 minutes, and it was a guy basically just talking about Piers Anthony. I lost interest in like 5 minutes, but I chimed back in as he was talking about the underwear, always being like magical on women.
Yep. Yeah,
On
he's a
women.
bit of a fetishist. He definitely is. And I mean, I was too young to catch on to that. And by the time I stopped reading his stuff, I actually hit puberty really late. And so I didn't realize that, yeah, everything he has ever written is just rife with nudity, sex, and kind of, that kind of theme. Even though he kind of skirts around it in his Xanth series, it's still really there, but it's never like graphic or anything like that, like in some of his other stuff.
Well, he's still
But yeah.
alive. He's like what, 86 years old right now.
Yep, and he's still writing, he's still
And he's still
publishing, and he
writing.
still answers all his fan mail.
Does he? I wonder if I need him on the podcast. That'd be totally cool.
That would be. Yeah,
Does he?
he's a cool guy.
Does he still write in the same way with that kind of like wink, wink
Yes.
lewdness?
Yeah. So I didn't get a chance to read very much of his new stuff. I read like a chapter of one of his newer books. But
Is
he's
it
still
like you're reminiscing back to your childhood, or is it kind of like, oh man, he's gotten better with age?
some of his stuff has improved. Like his earlier stuff, his prose was a little bit clunky. It's not nearly as clunky anymore. It's a much smoother, but it's still written at that very childlike level, if you know what I mean. And I don't mean childlike, I mean young adult level. So it's
Third
very
grade's
easy.
not young adult, bro. Is it supposed to be young adult? Is it supposed to be like that?
No, I was. I did a book report on Shogun in 6th grade, so I was reading
Oh,
stuff
that's
ahead of my
totally
time.
cool.
So
That's a monster of a book too.
yeah, I got an A in that class, even though I never did homework. So
That's pretty cool. So, did you end up going to? Did you get a degree, or you
no,
just
I did not.
no? But you
I
would have.
wanted to be a comic book author. I don't know what I was thinking.
But did what you would have gone into English if you had gone to school?
No, I would have got. I actually got an associate's degree in art. I was going
Oh,
to be
okay.
a
We've
comic
talked
book
about that
artist,
before. Oh, that's
but
true. Okay.
but by the time I got that associate's degree, I'm like, what the heck am I thinking? I can't use this for anything. So
Yeah, unfortunately, you could use it to be a comic book artist, and it just takes a lot of freaking work, as you're
yeah,
aware with what you're doing right now. I mean, basically the same thing.
yep,
I mean,
yeah,
you're pumping lots of effort into a vacuum, hoping something catches, right?
yeah. I'm loving what I'm doing now. So
It's
I'm
very
glad I
interesting.
didn't go down that other route.
Two loves, comic book art and reading, and you've kind of joined them together to form Tall Tale. It's
Yeah,
really fantastic. Um, so 1940 style, like radio serial
not
reading.
quite that bad, but it was a little bit more. I don't know how to really describe it. It was more canned than it is now. It wasn't quite as acted, if you know what I mean. It's like you listen to some narrators nowadays, and it just disappears into your mind, and it's like somebody's acting out the scene. Where this was, it was kind of like somebody was reading a book to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was just a lot of stuff from that time period sounded like that. So I think the sound of audiobooks has changed since, the 80s and 90s. But I could be wrong too.
Yeah, that's what I saw when I was. It was a tape on YouTube. Somebody had transferred a tape to YouTube, and basically it started out with this guy saying, "Okay, well, here's the deal. I'm going to read the entire freaking book from the first page to the last page. And at any time you want to skip past this section, press fast forward, and there'll be a beep when you need to press play." Like,
That's
wow,
right. Yeah, they had the
analog completely.
instructions.
I wish
Oh, I
that I could
remember
hear that
those.
beep because I was like, how do you make a tape beep while it's fast forwarding? That's how my mind works in terms of like that little bit of information. Then I just went to the comments and found where the book started and clicked on it, and I was there. I was like, wow, I love the future, right? I mean, that kid
Yep.
back then who listened to that audiobook brand new from Walden Books or something had to press forward, fast forward on his tape player.
Yep.
Um, yeah, it's pretty cool that that stuff is out there right now to be able to listen to it. Unfortunately, he's probably not getting any paid. He's not getting paid for it, but I get to listen to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. The
Um,
YouTube is rife with a bit
I
of
love it.
audiobook pirating.
That's all I've discovered that since doing this podcast specifically, the Mirage. There's tons of stuff out like that. I just have no time to listen for it. I listen to it. I feel like I'm constantly getting distracted, and it just doesn't work that way with books. You put a book down, you pick it back up again and start reading. But audiobooks, it plays for 15 minutes while you're thinking about something else. You're completely screwed. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yep.
Unfortunately, I have like adult ADD. Probably not. And I shouldn't make fun of that. So you're a third grader reading advanced, so probably able to handle some of the more adult themes of the novels themselves. Do you think that any third grader could read these books, or were you just
Um, I think if the third grader is, if you have a third grade reading level, you can read Pierce Anthony. It's just you have to have the attention span to sit down and read it. That's the biggest thing is that none of the other kids in my class really liked to read at that time.
yeah,
So they always gave us these little, 50-page books to do for reports and stuff. And
and
here's
you
this
zip through
300-page book, and it's like, oh, this is
them?
awesome. So it wasn't that it was any harder to read. It was just that, it was it's something new for me. But
It's amazing when you're a kid, you don't realize what you're reading. Man, I don't know what happened. My attention span is completely gone. I can't even sit through an audiobook. Um, so I don't know. Would you read these books to a kid? Actually,
no.
I mean, no, you would not read these books to a kid. They are geared towards an older audience.
Yeah, they're geared to basically boys going through puberty. So, and apparently that's when, from what I've seen online, looking at, different people talking about him, that's when a lot of people picked his stuff up, and that's when they got interested in books. So he's actually really good for getting kids interested in books around that, time period of their life, because there's, chicks in their underwear, and there's, sex scenes, even though none of it's very explicit. And there's just, he is a major pervert. And, I don't care at all, more power to him. The guy's, a legend.
That's
But
so interesting. And you think he's a legend. You think he's going to continue on into the future as somebody that people, I mean, obviously he's nearing, whatever's going to happen. Maybe he's got 30 more years left if he's lucky, which would be great, right?
Yeah, the reason I call him a legend isn't because, his stuff is timeless or anything like that, but everybody knows who he is on Reddit. It's like everybody
No, it's
started with
true.
Piers Anthony, So, but it's kind of one of those things. He's kind of like R.L. Stein, where the Goosebump books. He's the R.L. Stein of fantasy.
But he's been
kind of
writing
thing
since the
I look
60s,
at it.
though. I mean, he's been writing for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
When did he publish his first book? He's 86 now. So maybe in his 30s, right? So what was that, the 60s, right? I have his Wikipedia page open right in front of me.
Yeah, I do too. There's a 68.
Piers Anthony bibliography. And so these are series, though. Battle Circle series, the Atten, is that how you say it? Worlds of Chitin? Wow, why do you have to make up words?
Chthon. I
Just use
think it's
real
Chthon
words.
or Chthon.
The Xanth series.
Xanth is his big one, and I've read probably half of this
1977.
bibliography here, and I can barely remember any of it.
So it's, oops, I don't want to say that T word, but I mean, it's something that basically just drips into your eyeballs. You meditate over it for a little while, and then it goes to wherever stuff goes.
Yeah. I mean, I read this stuff 20 years ago, so.
Oh my God. So the Xanth series has 43 books in it.
Yep.
And he's got writing in progress on one of them, Just Right, GEST, and Fire Sale, which is being scheduled for publishing.
Yeah, the Xanth series, his, kind of main series, it relies really heavily on puns. If you can come up with any sort of pun, he's probably done it already. So, I mean, like a spelling bee is actually a bee that helps you spell, kind of stuff, and it's just, so all of his titles
God, it reminds
here.
me of Phantom Tollbooth.
What's that?
It reminds me of the Phantom Tollbooth.
I don't think I ever read that one.
What? Dude. I'm sorry. I know I've not read like 99% of the books that you've read. I can't talk to you anymore until you've read the Phantom Tollbooth.
Okay.
Okay.
You're the one that got me onto the egg, so.
What?
You're the one that got me to read the egg, so I'll
right.
trust you.
Oh man, gotta check out. Well, I mean, it's young. I mean, it's a youth book. I read it when I was like 8, something like that. But it's one of my favorite childhood books. It's up there with Benicula, if that says anything.
Okay.
Though it doesn't right, because he has kind of like that too going on, where the actual meaning of the word is actually at play somehow physically in the world in which you're inhabiting. It's great. Unfortunately, I never discovered this guy. I would have read 100 books. Come on, that's great. Going into that as a kid, you're looking at that kind of bibliography. You're like, yes, give it to me. I'm hungry for it.
Yep. Yeah.
And all the books are like 300, 400 pages long.
Well, I think it's more like 200 to 300, but I could be wrong. I'd have to actually look, but they're full-size novels. They're decent novels, especially to a kid. But yeah, the Xanth series, it's based in the land of Xanth, which is shaped exactly like Florida, and you get to it through the real world, Mundania, on the border of Florida. So it's just an alternate reality of Florida, and so there's the demon Xanth and the demon Earth, and demon Earth hates the demon Xanth because they're basically the gods of the two places, and demon Xanth is all about puns, and so everything in this land is all about puns, and everybody has a single magical talent, and everybody's talent is different, and it's just
that
people
was
get
the
in there and they
interesting
get into
part,
trouble.
that everybody has a different magical ability.
Yeah.
I was just the idea of writing this type of world is intriguing, right? I mean, you're sitting down and you just can do whatever you want. I mean, you're taking it to the absolute extreme.
Yeah.
Creating rules. I mean, Mondania, what a great name for the rest of reality.
Yeah. Yeah, it was he's really good at concepts and stuff like that, and his writing's not bad. I go back and I read it now, and it's kind of like going back and reading. Well, it's not as bad as reading like R.L. Stine, because
Yeah.
as an adult, that's really hard to read. You can still read this stuff, but it's not as it's not like reading Patrick Rothfuss or something like that. It's the writing level is not that high. He keeps it lower, and his reading base kind of gravitates towards that, from what I can tell. Most
Yeah.
people read these in their childhood.
Is it frustrating though that you can't count on any of the characters to have kind of a grounding in some kind of reality, where they could be anything, or is it extremely obvious and you're never really surprised because of the puns?
Right.
Like
From what I can
the
remember,
fire girl, she's actually fire, and you're not like, oh, I wonder if she's ice. No, she's fire.
yeah, the firemen are actually men made out of fire. So there's your pun. They're made out of lava. And hot dogs are lava dogs. So it's yeah. But if with his stuff, I remember it being like I was never um uh frustrated with that. It
Yeah.
was actually a bit of a surprise. It's like, oh, that's clever. He, did this with that play on words, stuff like that. But I never, as a kid, found it annoying, but apparently a lot of adults do. And when I went back and tried to reread some of this stuff, yeah, it can get on your nerves a little bit, because it's kind of like somebody who is constantly telling you dad jokes.
Oh, is that what it reads like? Dad jokes?
Kind of, not quite, but it's that kind of effect where it's like, okay, you've done 50 puns in the first 10 pages. Let's tone it down a little bit, you know. But
It's very interesting. This guy has been writing since 1956.
yeah,
I mean, what number is that? 63, 62 years? Is that right?
56. Yeah, 62 years, I think. That sounds
62
right.
years. That is incredible. This guy had a 50-year anniversary for his first published novel. It's incredible. I mean, he's still writing. He's got 2 books definitely coming out, or at least one that he's writing now. And he's British American, so I guess that means he'll live forever. I don't know if he'll live forever. I don't even know what British American means. That kind of sounds weird. I guess he's from Britain and he lives in America.
Yeah, he moved over when he was a young kid. I think they were refugees, if I remember right. I read his biography when I was young.
How are you a
Um,
refugee from Britain? And like say I'm allergic to bad food and you have to come here because you're being persecuted for your
I can't remember exactly. I seem to remember something like that, but I could be way off.
when was he born? 1934. So he hit World War II right during
Oh,
his
that
childhood,
could be
which
what
was
it was.
very, very interesting to have been, 10 years old during that.
Yeah.
Um, Goddard College in Vermont. I don't know that either. Goddard College. They have weird colleges up here. Like we're used to like Colorado State University or Florida State University, like normal names, but the Northeast, they like named them after people. Like this is Goddard College, 3 locations, 110 academic staff, 700 students. I would say that's small.
Yeah.
Blue and white colors. Science fiction, fantasy. I don't know. It's interesting. So he didn't even spend the war in England, though.
I
Was
don't know.
born, let's see, Alfred Jacob, although a British citizen, had been born in America near Philadelphia. And in 1940, after being forced out of Spain, Alfred Jacob is his father? Yeah.
I assume so.
This is my lesson that I've learned this evening is do not start reading in the middle of a paragraph. There's pertinent information. The writer just didn't blow smoke for the first part of the paragraph. He actually intended information to be portrayed. So Alfred is his dad, and they lived in Spain, and then they lived in England. I don't know. These guys are running away from a horrible situation in Europe, though, starting in the mid 30s, right when that guy was born. Being a father of 3-year-olds, I can't even imagine the world just all of a sudden ripping open in war all the way around you. You know what I mean? People are
Oh
throwing
yeah.
bombs at this country, and your country's a civil war, and you can't say this or that, or they'll string you up or send you to a concentration camp.
Those front
Well,
lines are coming towards you.
yeah, I mean, you don't even know where. I mean, they could be anywhere. I mean, planes are
Yep.
screaming over the sky. I mean, bombs. What a nightmare to live your childhood under. And that was his childhood, like, right? For 10 years, that was what he did, was live under that constant threat, potentially, because I can't figure it out. I'd like to imagine that's how he lived his childhood anyway. I should probably make sure. When did he come to
Yeah,
America? So he came in 1941. So, I mean, he was what, 5 years old when he came here. So maybe it wasn't that bad. But still, his father experienced it, and they probably told him stories. I don't know, something influenced this dude's imagination to the point where, he just created a whole new world, right?
Yeah, and
There's a
lots of them.
And he's
I mean,
considered British American too, even though he lived here most of his life. So he must have had some kind of romantic idealism about being British. Did I lose you?
no, I'm still here. Sorry, I was trying to find something here. Yeah, I wish I could dig out his biography. I've got it somewhere, but I don't actually know where all of his books are. They're in a back closet, in one of the many tubs that I've got. But I should have got that out and read that for this interview.
So I
Hindsight.
mean, he didn't serve in the military, but he should have served in the military, right? Who got drafted in the 50s? Was it just anybody, or did you have to have like a reason to be drafted?
I think was it by birth date?
Well, they probably had selective service, right? And was it a lottery? Did you avoid selective service, but just not being selected by a lottery? I don't know.
Maybe he had bone spurs.
Maybe he had bone spurs. That's a
Sorry,
thing. I mean,
had to.
he went to a private college. So, I mean, obviously he comes from some kind of money, right? I mean, daddy's running away from Europe. He's got to have something if he's sending his son to a little school in Vermont.
I could be way off on this, but I think college students were exempt.
Yeah,
I
but
could be
eventually,
way off.
yeah,
But
maybe you're right. I think something along those lines. I remember reading Bill Clinton's memoirs when he got out of office, and he was talking about his draft dodging days, and he just kept putting those student deferments in. But that was a different war, though. That was Vietnam, and this dude was way too old then. He was already in his mid 30s, so his imagination was not influenced by war necessarily.
it doesn't seem to come through that much. He has a couple books where war comes into play. Like he's got one book in his what is that series name? It's right over here. Uh, Incarnations of Immortality. He's got one about the deity of war. The wielding a red sword. So I mean that series actually, Incarnations of Immortality. If you're gonna read one of his books, start with the first book in that series. In my opinion, it's one of his best. It's called On a Pale Horse,
Mm-hmm.
and it follows a guy named Zane, and he is about to commit suicide, and then this figure of death basically shows up in front of him, and he shoots and kills death instead, and then has to take up the mantle of death.
Oh, it's
And,
interesting.
yeah, it was a really cool concept, and apparently that's one of his books that has held up to the test of time, where a lot of them have not.
So, On a Pale Horse is what it's called.
Yep, published in 1983, according to this.
I'll have to look it up. My sketch pad that I usually keep underneath my keyboard has got a gigantic sketch on it that I like, so I cannot take notes anymore on that sketch pad.
Oh no!
I've got to bury something else to write that down. I've got manuscripts all over the place. Like, you don't want my desk, man. It's horrible. On a Pale Horse. All
Yep,
right.
On a Pale Horse. If anybody wants to test out Piers Anthony, that would be a good place to start.
It's got a great
That
title.
one's definitely not fantasy. I mean, it's, I guess, urban
It is fantasy.
fantasy, supernatural, but it's not high fantasy.
Well, no, yeah, but there's degrees. Not everybody needs a prince and a princess.
Yeah, exactly. And then he's got like the Apprentice Adept series, which that one is both sci-fi and fantasy. It's a split world where it's multiple realities in the same world. And in the sci-fi setting, it's like there's the haves and have-nots, the upper class and then all the serfs, the kind of the slave class. And you can tell he's a bit of a pervert because all the slave class, which is 90% of people, have to have no clothes.
Well, that's
And
not necessarily a perverted thing. It's definitely a control thing. Some people you don't want to see naked.
right,
Not all slaves are hot, though.
he used it on occasion for perverted uses, but
God, and this guy, I can't believe how. I mean, I can't even equate who he sounds like to me, other than the Phantom Tollbooth, which is actually a children's book.
I'm gonna
Not,
have to read that.
yeah, it's really, I highly recommend it. I'm gonna look it up real quick and see who wrote it. It's like one of my favorite children's books. It was like you're reading the adult version of it, though. I've seriously broken my website. Norton Juster. Are you familiar with him?
I am not.
He's got a 4.2 out of 5 on Goodreads. That's
Nice.
disgusting. No, it deserves a 5.
Oh, okay.
Who's
Well,
who's taking points off? I'm gonna
it's
hunt
it's
them
hard
down.
for a kid's book to get that high, at least
Oh,
from what
really?
I've seen. I
Wow,
I mean, maybe I'm just looking at all the indie stuff, but
this guy's 89 years old too, or 89, and living in Brooklyn, New York. Where's Piers
wow.
Anthony live?
I believe he's still in Florida.
It doesn't tell me where he is. He is married though
Yeah.
to Carol Marble. It sounds like a character from one of his books. She has to she has to have like the power of marble or something. Her skin is tough like stone. Let's see. Piers Anthony, does he have any other information out there? I want some scandals, man. How
Does
come
he have
there are
any
no
other
scandals?
what?
Does he have any other information out there about
Oh,
him?
information. Yeah, I haven't seen that much. I mean, he's got a couple interviews, but they're all like, 5-10 minutes long.
I didn't even see anything worth clicking on when I looked. Just that one dude talking for 30 minutes about Piers Anthony. It's like, huh. I wonder what he was talking about. He played the entire time, and I did not pay attention to him. He
He
has some
he
great
is
covers.
one
Go
of the
ahead.
things I saw in one of his interviews is he is a big believer in escapism. He writes these books and he doesn't care what people say about them because the kids that he helps, are just in love with his books, and a lot of them tend to be going through like chemotherapy. And there was one girl who actually made a character who her name was Jenny, and she died at a young age. And all these kids that he gets these letters from tell him that his world and his creations and everything like that and his stories, they help them make it through this stuff that they're going through. And so he writes for the sake of escapism and to kind of take you away from reality. So that's one of his
Did,
big things.
did you experience that reading him for the first time? Kind of an escape from your reality, pulled
Oh,
into a different
absolutely.
world completely.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
that good of a writer that just kind of enveloped you and
At that age, definitely. Nowadays, I went back and I reread the first book, and it didn't take me out as much as a lot of stuff, but I mean, my uh level of um wow, my brain just died. The level of writing that I gravitate towards now is much higher. It's like, Rothfuss and Abercrombie and, guys like that who are kind of at the top of the game now, where his stuff was meant for a younger generation. So it just didn't grab me as much now.
do you think Piers Anthony could be popular writing his first book today?
Um, Not as popular as it was, I don't think. He would have to change up his prose a little bit and probably some of his world views because Tumblr would tear him apart.
Oh, he's one of those dudes, huh?
Not in a lot of ways, but where he does have some opinions that people don't like, he's unwavering. You know, one of his books, it was actually a really interesting book. Oh, what was it called? I think it's a standalone. Race Against Time. Race Against Time was kind of like a cross between The Truman Show and God, I don't even know what else. But basically, it starts out and it's this guy, and he's going about his daily life, and he's this white kid going to school and whatnot, and he's noticing that reality isn't what it should be. His cat has a monkey tail, and his dog can climb trees like a leopard, and the kids at school, their skin peels away, and he starts figuring out what's going on, and he has this pen pal, and the pen pal sends him a coded message, and it's this chick, and it turns out that they're in a zoo and they're due to be mated because they're the last two white people on Earth, you know. And then they find out that there's also a couple zoos that have Asian people and a couple zoos that have black people and stuff like that. And the whole thing is about people have interbred to the point where everybody's the same skin color, and these are the last living remnants of what we used to be. But the thing that people didn't like about it was that his message was keeping the races separate is the way to save humanity, or something along those lines. And so it was a little controversial at the end, but the story itself was, not bad until he kind of hit that note at the very end.
So what was it? These two. What I didn't. I couldn't tell if
Sorry.
I was on mute or not. So what was it? The couple was trying to escape the
Yeah,
multiracial population.
they were trying to escape the zoos. Basically, they realized that they were in these sets, kind of like the Truman Show, if you've ever seen the Truman Show with Jim Carrey.
Did they? What happened at the end when they won? Did they kill the entire population of the world and start over again
Nope,
with
they
their little
basically got
gingerbread
out.
children?
They got out, realized that they were still on Earth, and they were just kind of in these monuments, not necessarily zoos, but it was a way to show the human history and stuff like that. And they were trying to keep, these remnants of white people and these remnants of black people and these remnants of Chinese people without them interbreeding, so that they could, have these pure individuals.
It's
So
interesting, right? I mean, it's an
yeah,
interesting, horrible idea
I
in terms
don't
of like when did he write that? What book was that?
race against time.
Oh,
And I
okay,
don't know if he
Wikipedia.
really meant it to come off as racist, or that was just kind of how it ended up coming off, because I never really got an indication anywhere else that he was any sort of purist, you know. And so it was kind of odd. But
Was that one of his series?
no, it was a standalone book.
Oh, it was okay. Race Against Time. I'm not seeing it. Oh,
Um,
click on novels maybe.
Try Control F. Race
Oh, there it
against.
is. 1973. So
Yep.
yeah, man, I don't know. 1973 sounds like a horrible time to be not a racist. Like I think they probably required people to be racist in 1973. Right? I mean, you're going to get your
Yeah.
driver's license or like, are you racist? And you're like, no. Well, you're like, no, you're not getting a driver's license today. Go become
Yeah.
racist and come back. It's 1973. Damn it. We don't like
Yep.
people who are different than us here in this time in American
He's
history.
also accused of being a little bit sexist, a bit of
No
a
way.
womanizer. Right.
Just the underwear is magic on the ladies and he's considered sexist.
Yeah, it's hilarious. The underwear thing. Oh man.
Oh, man.
Basically, what
When I
that is.
saw that, when I read that, I was like, oh, dude, he would not. I don't know if he's still doing that stuff now or whether it's forgiven. I don't know. Would that
Absolutely.
be allowed?
Oh,
Would
he's
people like
he's
that?
unforgiving. Yeah, he doesn't care what people think. He's going to do what he likes,
Yeah.
and he has an underwear fetish. You know from his writing, But basically, in Xanth, if anybody sees a woman's underwear and they're not married, their
That's
brain
so
just
funny.
overloads and they kind of fall down and they go unconscious.
So he's the Quentin Tarantino of fantasy, basically. Everybody knows what gets this guy off his magic underwear.
Right?
Man, I was about to look something up and I got totally distracted. That's crazy. That everybody knows this guy has a fetish for magic underwear. Um, what is it exactly the underwear does though?
It yeah. If you're a guy and you see a girl's underwear, you basically just go unconscious. Your brain can't handle it, and that's
Interesting.
about the extent of it.
Looking at his picture, if you do like just a regular Google search and there was a side collection of pictures of him, the first picture is from the 60s. He was a bad looking guy. He probably had no problem getting passed out by women's underwear all the time. Where did he live? London? We don't know where he lived.
Um, I I could be wrong on this, but I think he's lived in Florida for a very long
Oh,
time.
Florida. Okay, let's find
Yeah.
out. Piers Anthony's home and how to stalk him. Piers. Get in trouble. Lives. He doesn't. He's 81, 86. How old did I say he was? I'm just gonna fill the dead air while I scan for the information I'm looking for.
I'm not sure. Well, I can fill some dead air. So one of his other series that's really good is the I think it's the Man of Earth series. Is that what it's called? It's something like that. It might just be the name of the first book. Oh, it's the Geodesy series. And Man of Earth is one. No, it's not. It's Shame of Man. Okay, that's what it's called. Man of Earth is a movie. Never mind. But so the Geodesy series was really interesting. I only ever read the first book of that one. But it's called Isle of Woman, and basically it kind of reminds me of what Cloud Atlas did, except I think this came out before Cloud
Oh
Atlas.
man, Cloud Atlas is based on something, isn't it? Is it based on a Piers Anthony work?
I don't know, but this one basically it just follows individuals as they're reincarnated through time, and they keep going through different trials and stuff like that. So that's, kind of when I saw Cloud Atlas, I never read the book, but I saw the movie. It kind of reminded me of that series, and I meant to go back and read it, and I never did. So I might have to dig that one out. Did I fill enough
Did,
time? Did you find what you were looking for?
oh no, I actually got distracted because I have no attention span. I did pull up his website. His website's awful.
His website's been the same
Awful.
since I was a kid.
Oh really? This is exactly the same picture?
Pretty sure Pierce Anthony.com, right?
Highpeers.com.
Oh, highpierce.com. That's right. Yeah, he's had that since the early 90s.
Oh wait, there's an actual time stamp on the picture he's using on the website. There's a timestamp on it to tell you exactly the day that he took it.
2015. All right. Yeah, this is the same website he's had since I was a kid. Those awesome graphics there where the books open up when you scroll over them.
Oh really? Do that? I didn't even do that.
Yeah.
Oh, me too. Ah, that's so cool.
Oh,
Oh,
I
early
love it.
internet, 1997. How I
Yep.
miss you and I wish you were back. And Trump wasn't president then, so it was like utopia.
I miss the
1997
90s.
was Bill Clinton. I'm going to BookCon on Sunday,
Yeah.
and Bill Clinton's going to be there with
Oh,
James
nice.
Patterson discussing his new thriller, Would the President Go, or something weird like that. Actually, looking forward to reading that book, just because a president is writing a piece of fiction. I think it's unprecedented. Maybe I can get Bill Clinton on my podcast.
That would be awesome. That would, yeah. Some
How
recognition.
ridiculous would that be?
Uh,
I don't know. I'm
Weirder stuff
looking
has
here.
happened.
I don't see anything about anywhere. Maybe he doesn't live in our world. Maybe he just kind of visits
There
from
you go. I like that explanation.
just pops into Florida, drops stuff off in the mailbox, and he leaves again. That's why people think that he is a Floridian. All right, let's find out if he writes about Florida. Nope, he doesn't write about Florida either. So we'll assume he lives in Florida. I lived in Florida. It's not very nice. I can imagine that he's very miserable. Have you ever been?
Nope, never been to Florida. Don't plan to.
It's very hot and humid and filled with bugs. Oh my God, man, the cockroaches are gigantic. And you just step outside and clouds of these bugs called no-see-me's just swarm all over you. It's hell on earth. And there's reptiles everywhere, like from little tiny lizards to rattlesnakes to gigantic alligators just waiting to snatch you from anywhere. I mean, they don't even have to be in the water. They could be like in trees. That's how horrible it is down there. And
Sounds
that dude's,
awesome.
that's horrible. It's hell. It's hell. New York is much better. But he lives down there and it's crazy. And he's written over 100 novels. I
I
don't
wish
know.
it told me the number here, but I don't see it anywhere.
You'd have to add it up. I mean, you could go to his
Oh,
bibliography.
it's right at the top. 166 works.
Wow.
Yeah. How
That
did I miss
dude just,
that? It's the first sentence on the bibliography.
I'm picturing him with a typewriter like attached to his chest, and he just walks around typing all day long, never stopping. I mean, this is ridiculous. How does he do that much? 166 novels.
Oh, that can't be right because that says from 1956 to December 2013. So
And
that's
there's
5
more
years
now.
old.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's in more than that. Not much, but still
Yeah.
more than that.
Probably hasn't broken 200.
213 was Dragon Assassin. Oh, he's
What's that?
starting to write with people.
He's done a couple. He did one that was really good. It was called If I Pay Thee Not in Gold. I can't remember who he did that with. I could probably find it, but that was a fun book.
Oh, it's very interesting. He has only written with, well, I guess there's a few that he's written on his own, but been a bunch of collaborations since the 90s. If I Pay Thee Not in Gold was written with Mercedes Lackey.
Yeah, yeah.
And Mercedes Lackey is 67 years old and been working since 1987.
She was the Dragon of Pern lady, if I remember correctly.
Dragon of Pern?
Dragon Riders of Pern, I think. I could be having the wrong author in my mind, but might maybe Mercedes Lackey is the vampire chick.
She is the Vladimir universe. Vladimir universe. She also did Elves on the Road universe.
Okay, I'm thinking of the wrong person.
Heirs of Alexandria. The Half-Blood Chronicles with Andre Norton. Hunter series. Bard Tales. The Dragon Jousters. None of this. The Dragon
Yeah.
Prophecy. She's written crazy amounts of books.
Yeah,
I
I've read
mean,
some of her stuff. I was thinking of Anne McCaffrey.
oh
But
yeah, she had that dragon book.
yeah, Mercedes Lackey is another really great author.
When
I
you,
haven't
how many books a year do you read?
any more? Maybe 10, but back when I was a kid, it was at least one a week.
Oh yeah,
I,
okay.
I I powered through most of the stuff that I've ever read by the time I graduated high school. And after that, you get a job and you just go home and sleep. But yeah, I used to read, 1 to 3 books a week, and I'd be reading 4 or 5 books at a time.
Yeah, that's what I do now too. I never finish anything. I have so many books open, it's ridiculous. And Reddit is like the suck of all of my time right now. Like when I want to be entertained or find something new or interesting, I'm like, I'll Reddit will help me out.
I see your
Who,
posts.
you see my
I
posts?
I see your posts in Reddit all the time where you're posting the pictures in the writing prompt threads.
Yeah, I like doing that. They help me occasionally come up with stories too.
One of these days, I'll have something to respond with.
Why not, right? I mean, my goal when I start one of those things is to at least try to make 500 words. And it
Yeah.
makes a nice little flash piece for my website. And Medium actually paid me $3.50 for a story, which has
Nice.
motivated me to actually put more flash fiction on that website just to see if I can make some money on it. So,
You're officially a paid working author.
oh man, I've gotten some work out there lately. It's been pretty nice. It's
That's
been pretty
awesome.
cool. Yeah. I'm not sure what to do about the novels or anything, but like short fiction might be working out. It's horrible. The rejection though. You constantly just getting back bad news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, I heard somebody's posting one of your stories on Monday.
Yeah, I think somebody is actually. I'm really excited about it. I have a reworked just slightly the beginning, and there's some redundancies, some word redundancies that I was actually sending that story out to. It's amazing what you don't notice until you notice it, you know?
Hmm.
But I think I tightened it up slightly. If you have any notes on anything that I ever send you, I'm really happy to hear it. I
Sure.
mean, it's not about being perfect. It's really all about, eventually being perfect,
Right.
which there's
Refinement.
no such thing as perfect. I mean, getting back to Piers Anthony, I wonder if Piers Anthony is satisfied with the work that he does. Does he
Uh,
know he's good? Does he care that he's good?
from what I've seen from him, throughout the years and whatnot, it's really the fans that made it worthwhile for him. So he loves the fan mail. I mean, that's why he still responds to everything. I guess like 2/3 of his time is spent responding to fan mail, but he, everything that I've ever seen, he definitely feels like he was happy with what he's done. And people love what he's done, and he just is enjoying it to no end. Yeah, but
How could you not? I mean, wow. Interesting career. I mean, he kind of looks like a now I want to call him Piers Anthony, but he's not. He's the other guy who died of dementia.
Oh, Terry Pratchett.
Thank you, Terry Pratchett. He
Yeah,
seems to be very Terry Pratchett-y.
yeah, they're both comedians. So
Are they comedians, like on the stage performing in front of a crowd?
no,
Comedians, or just writing comedy slash
no.
fantasy?
The only comedian I know that's actually writing novels that sell is Stephen Meyer. But uh,
I don't even know who that is. Last comedian book I read, I think, was Tim Allen's "Don't Ignore the Naked Man" or something weird like that. And that was like in the 90s.
I'm straight up like fantasy novel.
Oh, I
Uh,
see.
I'm pretty sure it's Stephen Meyer. He did the Magic 2.0 series, which I just absolutely love. But
I think that honestly, man, I wish there was a way to get your brain filled with all the stories that you enjoy into my brain so I could stop struggling to find my next read. Who is this guy that you just said? Myers?
yeah, I think it's Meyers. Let me make sure that that's right. I'm horrible with names. I really am.
Um,
Uh,
yeah, I
that
mean, like
that's not right. Let's see. What is his name? Yeah.
Piers Piers Anthony, and then Terry Pratchett, and then Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy
Scott
guy,
Meyer.
Scott Meyer. Okay,
Scott Meyer. Yeah.
they
Stephen
all seem
Myers
to
is
be
somebody
kind of
else.
writing in the same vein, that dry British kind of punny, gonna flip things on its ear writing. You know what I mean? You're expecting it to work out one way, but it goes a totally different way, and it's ridiculous. You know, the
Yeah.
Red Dwarf kind of does that too in a way,
Red
where
Dwarf is awesome.
oh, I love it. I want to just sit down and binge it, and I always lose like again attention. I'm on like the fourth season for like decades now. I think
Oh
that's when they
no.
switched it up. When they were in the first three seasons, it was pretty predictable. I mean, it was
Yeah.
comfortable. You could sit through an episode. They were on the ship. There, this was happening. That voice was happening. This character was interacting with that character. And then the fourth season happened. It's completely different. Like, what happened to the show? And it's been on for like 18 years or something like that.
They got through 8 or 9 seasons and the show got canceled, but they recently brought it back and they're actually making new seasons now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
haven't
I remember
seen
when
the
it
new
came back. I
seasons,
haven't
but
seen anything since the fourth one. But yeah, no, it's iconic. I've really enjoyed what I have watched.
yep.
It's weird for a British series to go longer than 2 or 3 seasons, though.
It was bigger over there than Star Trek.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I mean, I definitely would like to continue watching it, but I'm on the fourth season for like decades now. And Piers Anthony, I've not read any of his books, and Terry Pratchett's the same way. I mean, I just unfortunately think that I've ruined my life by not being more aware of what was out there in the fantasy genre earlier.
Because now we
These
have
sound
no
like
time.
right. I mean, these sound like great authors to read.
Yeah.
I never would have had to look for a book. I mean, there's like hundreds and hundreds just with those two. I'm gonna force my kids to read these books.
Well, with the Xanth, just don't force them until they're a little older.
High school age, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
think it was oh, who was it? Robin Hobb that got me to finally drop Pierce Anthony books for the most part. I kept up with the Xanth series for a couple years after that, but I found Robin Hobb and she just sucked me in like nobody ever had, since I found Pierce Anthony. It was The Assassin's Apprentice. I read that book and I just kind of went down a rabbit hole of more adult level writers.
Let's do the history of your discovery of this type of fiction. What did you do again? You didn't library it. Did you just walk into bookstores and kind of browse the fantasy and just pick randomly at covers or names that you
So,
were already reading? How did you discover these people that you're so
so
familiar with?
Pierce Anthony, obviously I got from my aunt. So
Yeah.
that one kind of just fell into my lap. But most of the stuff is either from the library, a used bookstore, or I loved the library sales that they used to do in my local mall. They would just have boxes and boxes of books, and they were all 25 cents. So I would go in there and I'd spend like $50 and just take these huge boxes of books home and just kind of pile them all into the back of my mom's car. And I had shelves all around my room, and I never read all of them, but I had books like nobody else. So I would look for titles that looked interesting, and I would look for covers that looked interesting, and sometimes I would read the back. But usually it was an eye grab that would get my interest. So that's how I found Robin Hobb. It was Assassin's Apprentice. I mean, it was just an amazing title. I looked at the cover. It was a cool cover. Tossed it in the box. Read it 3 years later.
That's interesting when you didn't have anything else to read and you were
Yep.
just desperate for a book. Yeah, it's very interesting. I didn't even think about genre until I was an adult.
Yeah.
You know, it was just get a book and read a book, not anything else. Just browse. You know, nobody's saying read fantasy or science fiction. It was just like, so I mean, you have a pretty good education on speculative fiction. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Too bad I can't remember most of it.
But the thing is, it's there. I mean, I bet you would make a. I mean, I like Tall Tale as an idea. I would love to see it become kind of like a Clark's World or a what's it called, a Uncanny type magazine where people can read stories online and you continue doing the podcast like you're doing and kind of curate your own variety of fantasy or you know
That would be awesome.
stuff to read.
Someday.
Um,
I'll
right?
get,
And just take the editor mantle onto yourself.
yeah, get a couple people working with me.
How's the podcast working out? Have you figured out all the screws and whatnot to tighten up?
The actual podcast form rather than the YouTube form. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually hoping to launch that this coming week.
Oh, good for you.
So I'm
Hey,
gonna go with Pinecast. I think I
oh,
decided to go with the.
Pinecast,
Yeah.
not a Sebastian's baby.
Wait, what?
Wait.
Pinecast is who I'm hosting the podcast with.
Oh, I've never even heard of them. What are they?
They're kind of like Libsyn or Bilberry. They're just a hosting site, but it's like $5 a month, and as long as your files aren't over 67 megs, you can post as many as you want, and they hold them.
How
So it was
much? Is it a month? That's how it works.
yeah,
Is an allowance per month?
yep, $5 a month, and they'll host your podcast for you.
How many megabytes did you say a month?
I think it was 67 per file with no limit on the number of files. It was something like that. I can send you the information if you want.
No, I've seen it before. I just misread it. I even know the website. I host all my stuff on my website. I don't even understand the reasoning behind going outside of that.
Well, the reason is if when I'll say when when you become really popular and people start downloading those, it'll bottom out your website. And you can only draw so much bandwidth from your website before they shut it down. And so if people are downloading these podcasts like crazy from your website, then all of a sudden nobody can listen to them and nobody can actually view your website. Where if you host the audio files with something like, Pinecast or Libsyn or something like that, then it never bottoms out because they're the ones supplying the unlimited bandwidth.
Will that
So that's
will
what
that
people do.
influence the numbers that you're getting? Like if you get a certain number or they stop? No, right? I mean, you would know when it's happening. You would get some kind of warning or something, right? That's
Honestly, I don't know.
right. I mean, I don't think the numbers are that big. I mean, I can understand like a Joe Rogan getting millions and
Yeah,
millions of people downloading his podcast. That would bottom
yeah,
out a website. You know what I mean?
yeah. And it also depends on, do you have a free website or are you paying for your hosting? Everything like that. So it's like I think I pay $100 and some odd dollars a year for my hosting.
Like
So I
200 for me. I went to the professional because I want unlimited. I was doing the
yeah.
yeah, I was doing the other one for a while. Your website's different though because you're not really hosting anything really because you post on YouTube and
Yep.
then you take that link from YouTube and you paste it onto a post and you're good to go.
Yeah, it's all embedded. So that's
It's
what I'm
all
going to do with
embedded.
the Pinecast as well.
That's
So
that's
I'm
not
probably
bad.
overcautious, but
But my thing is I just don't want to pay the additional service. It just makes me mad. It's like all
yeah,
these subscription rates that are all these subscription fees that are coming around lately are just like, man, who do you think you are? I'm not going to pay everybody $10 a month. Are you crazy?
right.
Pick a
It adds
different
up
way to make
quick.
money. It's interesting because I'm not going to be charging people subscription. You're not going to be charging people subscriptions. But the question is, how do people eat going into the future? I read a really interesting article about Google failing because they tied themselves to this advertising model, and nobody loves advertising. The generation that's coming up right now, the 18 to 25-year-olds, refuse, and they will work around like crazy to avoid advertising. I mean, I'm older,
Hmm.
much older than that, 41, but I still block advertising and refuse. I mean, I cut the cord on cable because I'm done with anything. You know, break
Yeah.
my, if I'm watching a show or a story, I do not want to have a 3-4 minute block of crap about laundry detergent. It just makes no sense. I'll get my entertainment another way. I don't need that aggravation. And a lot of people feel the same way. And so advertising is dying. So people need to make money. And the question is, what do you do? And you're kind of in that same ballpark, because what did you say? You refuse to monetize your YouTube channel, or at least that's
Yeah,
what you
I'm never going to monetize my YouTube or anything like that. If I do a story of my own eventually on the podcast, I might see if I can get a sponsor, but I'll never put it on somebody else's story. I'm doing this so that they have something to put on their website, and I don't want my, garbage attached to it for me to make a buck. So
I don't even see that being an issue, man. If I give you my story and you read it like that, and I'm 100% positive that anybody would feel this way, you deserve to make money off of that. I would monetize the crap out of it.
Here's the thing: is if I do go down that route, I would be doing it so that I could pay money to the writers, because I would love to do that, but until I actually make an income, I can't. So I'm not even going to think about that again until I get down the road, and then I think I would give people an option. I could either do this with no advertising, or I could do it with advertising and give you, this much money, because that's what I'll be making off the advertising kind of deal.
And I think the more money that you could pay an author, the better your website looks in general. You can win awards. Like 6 cents a word is professional rate, and I think that's the bottom of the barrel professional rate. I don't think it gets any lower than that, and still qualify for like science fiction fantasy guild standards or something along those lines. And for my story, Sebastian's Baby, you would have paid me $260 for that story.
Yeah,
Professional,
and I just
that's
can't
a
afford
week,
that.
right? That's a week. You do one a week, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no, I do
So,
2 a week. 2 a week.
but that $260 or that 1,080 a month or whatever it is would get you on a list of websites that are eligible for like Hugo prizes, and your name would be way up there.
Yeah, I'm up for a
what I mean?
Parsec award right now.
Whoa, are you really? What's a
Yeah.
Parsec award?
Parsec is science fiction and fantasy literary podcasts.
That's freaking
So,
crazy, dude. That's a big deal.
yeah,
Are you excited?
I'm
How come you
hoping.
lead off with that and say it like numerous times throughout this entire podcast? I'm going to attach the nominated for a Parsec award to my website. That's crazy, dude. Congratulations.
Thank you.
When do you find out if you win?
They announce winners at DragonCon.
That's in
So
Seattle. No, that's in Atlanta.
I think Atlanta.
Are you
And
going?
I'm not exactly sure when it is. I would love to, but I don't know if I can get the time off work. So we're gonna see. I don't have to be there to win, but it would be cool if I was.
That's pretty
But
awesome, dude. I mean, that's huge. Who's nominated with you?
I don't know who nominated me. They don't tell you.
No, I mean,
So
who's nominated alongside of you?
Oh, I'm not sure. I could look it up, I guess. Let's see.
I think I'm looking at it right
But
now.
they've got a lot of different categories. Let's see. That's not the right email.
All right, Herron, semifinalist. Johnson and Johnson by Dave Morgan. Right? Is that the story?
That's not my story. I
Oh,
haven't
it's not.
submitted the stories yet.
Oh,
That would
you
be with
haven't submitted.
somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got until the 15th to get them, my selections and
How
whatnot.
did you get nominated then for this?
I don't exactly know. I just got an email one day saying I was nominated for a Parsec award, and
You
so
are. I'm looking at your name right in front of me. It's crazy, dude. Tall Tale
yeah.
TV. So you're nominated just for so Tina Connolly for Toasted Cake, Aaron Peterson, Amanda Sink, Zach Parkerson for Smirk. I don't know how this is. I don't understand anything that's happening here.
they've got different categories, and I'm in the category for basically
Best speculative fiction magazine or anthology podcast.
Yeah.
Dude, you got some big names. Strange Horizons is in this category, I think.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be the number
might.
one
I've listened to your
winner.
stuff, And I've listened to Strange Horizon stuff, and I prefer your style of reading a story, to tell you the absolute truth.
Oh, I
In
appreciate
fact,
that.
I appreciate your style of reading a story. Like if somebody like Strange Horizons came to me and said, "Do you want to read your own story?" I would say no, but contact this guy Chris Herron, he'd probably do it for me. I
There you
mean, I
go. I
like your
would.
stuff. I like your stuff, and I think you deserve to be on that list. So that's awesome. That's really cool. That's exciting. I'd love to be nominated for a Parsec. Can you
Yeah,
just pretend to be me when you go down there and pick it up?
sounds good.
For Aiello picking up Chris Herron's award. You'd be good to go. Well, man, I don't know. What do you think? Did we even talk about Piers Anthony at all?
We did.
Okay, good. We managed to squeeze in some Piers Anthony discussion.
I think at least the first half was 60% Piers Anthony.
He well decided that he's a little bit of a pervert. He likes magic underwear, and he probably did not like different races of people. And that's okay because he was born in the 1930s, and people were like that then, just like Roseanne Barr. He probably took a lot of Ambien and was racist. It happens.
And again, I don't know if it really was him being racist or if that's just the way that people took it. And that's the only case I've seen that I can recall where it even came off that way. So
I was listening to one of those audiobooks on YouTube of Tarzan. I was curious why that was considered a classic. And that is the biggest piece of racist garbage ever written. The entire thing is horrible.
it doesn't
I mean,
surprise me. Nothing worse than Pocahontas.
oh man, people are right. I mean, this is in a century of us right now. People are writing like that. Just the races were different. I mean, black people, whatever. I mean, they were just like totally different from white people. White people were superior. It's like it's interesting that
Yeah.
attitude hopefully is dying. Joe Rogan said on his podcast, I think it was the Kevin Smith one, that he thinks racism will die in 10 years with
That'd
the
be
internet.
awesome.
Right? I mean, I think that's what's happening. Look what happened with Roseanne Barr. She's a big TV show. People love it.
Yep.
She says one stupid comment that may or may not have been intended racist racially, and she's gone.
It was the Ambien.
It was the Ambien. I mean, I don't even know. I've taken that before. You don't become racist.
I loved her show when I was a kid.
Right? I mean, it wasn't bad. I watched it all the time. And unfortunately, all of those actors, but I mean, ABC knew what they were getting into, right? When they took her on. She did that when she was on their station back in the 90s or whenever she was on this ABC. She was a horrible person. She messed up all types of stuff. She was just a different era. I mean, even before she got her show back, she was saying dumb stuff on Twitter, but just nobody cared.
Yeah.
And now she says this one thing, and the only reason that her megaphone was big enough that anybody even notices is because she's on a show. I don't know. I guess we share politics political opinions a little bit.
Definitely.
It does scare me that her attitude was so pervasive in our country that she was allowed to have a top show. You know what I mean? Enough people said she's a favorable character that I'll watch it every single week. Found that interesting. Did you watch it?
No, I don't have TV.
You don't have TV either.
I
I did watch,
and that's it.
I watched like one episode of it, and I don't know. I wasn't really that. I was annoyed. You know what I mean? Because Laurie Metcalf just was nominated for an Academy Award, and she was playing this real mousy, Hillary Clinton supporter loser. It's really interesting. I mean, the concepts are really tight, but it was really scary that there's 50% of the people out there that feel like that Roseanne Barr character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyway, in terms of politics, we handled that, so I'll check that box.
Okay.
We're
notorious for getting sidetracked.
What's that?
We're notorious for getting sidetracked in these.
Yeah, I love it. And that's why I do it and see where you end up, man. That's why I'm on Reddit, right? I mean, you never know what you're going to discover in the comment section. I mean, it's not really even about the dumb meme. It's about the giant paragraph of information that you're going to run into.
Well, to get back to Piers Anthony, a couple fun little tidbits. He
Okay.
had a board game for Xanth, and he had a computer game for Xanth. They were both
A board game? Did you play it?
I played it, and I also played the computer game.
Either
they were
or?
indicative of the 90s.
Absolutely
So
horrible, unplayable today, but
unplayable today, but fun back then.
right? That's
Yep.
unbelievable. I mean, there's so many games that Contra, being an example, that I loved back in the 90s, could not play it today to save my life. What else you got?
He wrote the novelization for Total Recall.
Wait, wasn't that based on a Android's Dream of Sheep? What's that guy's name? Philip Dick. I thought it was based on a Philip K. Dick book.
Could be. I'm not sure. He wrote the novelization of the film. So the film is not based off of his book. The book is based off the film.
That was a great movie, but it had nothing to do with him at the end of the day. It's fantastic little bit of information, though.
And
it was based on a Philip K. Dick book.
So he wrote a book based off a movie based off a book. That's awesome.
That's very, very interesting. I wonder how that feels. You've written 166 novels of original work, and all of a sudden somebody says, "Hey, yo, bro, you know that movie Total Recall? Could you write a book about it?" You got a paycheck, right? I mean, it's all about paying the mortgage at the end of the day.
I'm looking through this list of books, and it's like, yep, I read that one, but I don't remember it. Yep, I read that one, don't remember it. It's horrible. I remember liking them. That's all the fun facts I had.
I mean, the guy is an interesting author. I mean, I'm happy that he's still alive and still working. Yeah. Do you think he's still working, or do you think it's somebody else writing in his name?
Oh no, I absolutely think he's still working. But gosh, this was back in early 2000s. There was an announcement that he had plans to will the Xanth series to somebody else. Whether or not that's still the case, I don't know. But I do think that he is still the one writing it, because I was able to read a couple chapters in some of the latest books, and it's definitely him still writing it. That or somebody who was very good at his style. But yeah, so the Xanth series might outlive him. We'll have to see.
I mean, there's been interesting characters from speculative fiction's past that have lived that you would never even imagine in a million years, right? As an example, I mean, who wrote the it was Burroughs. The whole Barroom thing, the Mars, John Carter, that stuff is pretty horrible. But you know it, right? It still lives. They made a movie of it like 5 years ago. So I mean, this guy's got 166 novels of copyrightable material that Disney can buy eventually from his ancestors.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I don't know. Interesting guy. I'm going to check out some of these books and see if I can get into them. I mean, that's been my problem lately, is I just can't get into books to save my life.
Yeah. Like I said, if you want to try to get into his books, I would start with On a Pale Horse. It's widely recognized as one of his best, even though it was from 1983, but I would try that one. And if that pulls you in, then you might try some of his other stuff. But if not, his style's not for everybody,
So do you think that we've done Piers Anthony justice?
I hope so.
or ripped him to shreds, and now he's crying when he finds this podcast. When his Google alerts like chimes, Piers Anthony's name has been used in a podcast, and he listens to it all hopeful.
He'll always be one of my heroes. So
tearing him apart and like eviscerating him, ripping his guts out.
Geez, now you're making me feel bad.
No. I think we played homage to him. I think his nice little podcast that expresses a dude that wrote 166 novel. I mean, that's crazy. I can't even imagine doing that.
Yeah.
I wish we knew what kind of work ethic the guy had, like in terms of his daily activity. Charles Dickens wrote for 5 hours a day, and he only wrote 20 some odd novels and works and essays and whatnot. This guy wrote 166 novels in his lifetime. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, he's got one heck of a track record.
Yeah, right. And as usual, man, your track record is gold, and I really thoroughly enjoyed this conversation as well. And you don't mind if I mention the Parsec thing in the show notes?
Go right ahead. Yeah, no, that's fine.
I'll put a link to it if people can help. I mean, is it like it's not social networking oriented? I mean, it's like no, okay.
It's all a judge panel. So.
But yeah, man, you deserve it. Your podcast, your website's pretty tight. And your productions are always pretty right on. So I mean, that's pretty cool.
Okay.
That I have the honor to have you on my show occasionally.
And vice versa.